Hey there. Tonight, we're going back, way back, to a time you've probably never imagined in your history class. Welcome to Backtime, where forgotten truths whisper through the centuries. Before you drift off, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. So, dim the lights, get comfortable, and let me take you somewhere extraordinary. You are standing in the shadows of massive stone pyramids, but these aren't the monuments you learned about. These are fortresses, battle-scarred, blood-stained, built not for gods or glory, but for survival. The year is roughly 900 CE, somewhere in what we now call Central America. And you are about to live through something they never taught you in school. You're a young warrior named Citlali, which means star in Nahuatl. Though tonight, you'll learn that stars aren't the only things that burn bright and die young. Your civilization has spent 3 generations building these pyramid fortresses, stacking stone upon stone, not to reach the heavens, but to see your enemies coming from miles away. Tonight, you'll discover why your ancestors chose elevation over expansion, why they built up instead of out, and why every stone in these walls is held together with something darker than mortar. Let's begin. You wake before dawn in the warrior's quarters, carved into the 3rd tier of the pyramid fortress. The stone is cold beneath your woven mat, and your breath makes small clouds in the darkness. Around you, 20 other young warriors sleep fitfully, their bodies marked with the same blue tattoos that wind up your arms like vines. These marks aren't decorative, they're a record. Each spiral represents a raid you've survived, each dot an enemy you've faced. You have 7 spirals. Your closest friend, Yautl, has 12. He sleeps 2 mats away, his scarred hands still gripping his obsidian-tipped spear, even in dreams. The pyramid fortress of Tlaloc rises 200 feet above the valley floor. Its limestone blocks fitted so precisely that even now, in the pre-dawn chill, no wind whistles through the cracks. Your people didn't invent this design overnight. 60 years ago, when the drought came and neighboring cities turned to raiding, your grandparents made a choice. They abandoned their sprawling valley settlements and began building upward. The first pyramid took 10 years and 3,000 workers. Now, 7 pyramids dot the valley, each one a self-contained fortress city, each one watching the others with suspicious eyes. You stand and stretch, feeling the familiar ache in your shoulder where an arrow grazed you 3 months ago. The scar is thick and purple. Your mother, a healer who lives on the 6th tier with the other craft specialists, told you it would fade. She lied, but you understand why. In this world, scars are currency. They prove you're not afraid to stand at the wall when the horns blow. They prove you're useful. Outside your small window, the sky begins to lighten from black to deep purple. Another day. Another chance to prove yourself worthy of the warrior's ration. You make your way down the interior corridor, your bare feet silent on the worn stone steps. The pyramid's interior is a maze of passages, stairways, and chambers, all designed with defense in mind. Every 20 steps, the corridor narrows to a choke point, where 2 warriors could hold back 100 invaders. Every turn is angled to prevent enemies from seeing what lies ahead. Your fortress isn't just a building, it's a weapon. At the 4th tier, you pass the granary guards, 2 older warriors whose raiding days are behind them, but whose eyes remain sharp. They nod at you, you nod back. No words are needed. In a fortress city where 5,000 people live stacked upon each other like birds in a cliff face, you learn to communicate in gestures and glances. Words are for the marketplace and the council chambers. Warriors trade in silence and understanding. The scent of copal incense drifts from somewhere above, where the priests are conducting the dawn ritual. They'll be cutting their ears with obsidian thorns, letting blood drip onto sacred paper. Your people believe the gods require blood to keep the sun rising. The priests provide it willingly. You've always thought that if the gods truly needed blood, they'd have plenty soon enough. War provides more than any ritual. You reach the third tier's communal eating area, a broad terrace open to the sky. Other warriors are already gathering, accepting their morning ration of maize porridge and cacao from the serving women. The portions are measured precisely. Warriors get double what farmers receive. Children get half. The elderly get quarter portions unless they're craft specialists. Your grandmother, who weaves the finest cotton in the valley, eats better than most young farmers. This is how you survive when 5,000 people depend on stored grain and terraced gardens. Yautel finds you quickly, sliding onto the stone bench beside you, with the easy grace of someone who's never doubted his place in the world. His 12 spirals mark him as a senior warrior, though he's only 3 years older than you. He earned his first spiral at 14, when raiders from the Eastern Pyramid attacked during harvest season. You were 11 then, still training with wooden spears and dreams of glory. Sleep well? He asks, scooping maize porridge into his mouth with practiced efficiency. Warriors eat quickly. You never know when the alarm will sound. Like a stone, you lie. Truth is, you haven't slept well since the last raid 2 weeks ago. You keep seeing the face of the enemy warrior you killed, a boy younger than you, his eyes wide with surprise as your obsidian blade found his throat. He'd worn green tattoos instead of blue. Otherwise, you could have been brothers. Yautel knows you're lying but doesn't press. He's good that way. Instead, he nods toward the eastern horizon, where the sun is finally breaking over the mountains. Commander wants the Western Watch doubled today. Scouts reported smoke signals from the River Valley Pyramid last night. Your stomach tightens. Smoke signals mean movement. Movement means either trading parties or raiding parties. Given the dry season and dwindling water supplies in the lowlands, you'd bet your remaining maize ration on raiders. Which watch are we assigned, you ask, though you already know. Warriors with fewer than 10 spirals always get the dangerous posts. The western wall faces the river pyramid, the closest of your rival fortresses, only 3 miles away, close enough to see their watchfires at night, close enough to hate them with precision. Western wall, third watch, dawn to midday. Yautel grins, but his eyes are serious. Wear your quilted armor. You finish your porridge and head to the armory chamber, a reinforced room on the second tier where weapons and protective gear are stored under constant guard. The armory master, a one-eyed veteran named Tezcatl, who lost his sight and his fighting days to an enemy club, nods as you approach. He knows every warrior's measurements by touch alone now, running his weathered hands along the racks of quilted cotton armor until he finds the pieces that fit you. The armor is 3 fingers thick, made from cotton soaked in salt brine and left to dry until it becomes hard enough to stop obsidian blades and turn aside arrows. It's heavy, adding 15 pounds to your frame, but it's saved your life twice. The first time, an arrow struck your chest during a skirmish near the water terraces. The armor caught it. You still have the arrow, the shaft broken, but the obsidian point intact. You keep it under your sleeping mat as a reminder that the gods aren't the only ones who control life and death. Tezcatl helps you tie the armor pieces in place, his scarred fingers working the cotton cords with muscle memory. The western wall, he mutters. They're testing us. River Pyramid always tests before they attack. How do you know they'll attack, you ask, though you're not really questioning his judgment. Tezcatl survived 37 raids before losing his eye. If anyone understands the patterns of warfare, it's him. Dry season. Their cisterns will be running low. They'll need our water terraces, which means they'll need our pyramid. He ties the final knot and steps back, his one good eye studying you with the intensity of someone who sees more with half the vision than most do with 2 eyes. Don't die today, Sitlali. You're starting to get good at this. The western wall stretches 60 feet along the pyramid's third tier, a defensive platform with waist-high battlements made from limestone blocks carved with protective glyphs. Your people believe the glyphs ward off enemy arrows and misfortune. You believe the 3 feet of solid stone behind the glyphs does most of the actual work, but you're not foolish enough to say so aloud. Faith and limestone both have their place in warfare. You take your position beside Yautl and 3 other warriors. To your left stands Nakali, a quiet fighter who lost his younger brother in last month's raid. To your right, Atl and Shimali, twin brothers who fight with the synchronized precision of people who shared a womb. They're all older than you, all bearing more spirals, all watching the western horizon with the patient intensity of predators waiting for prey to reveal itself. The river pyramid sits 3 miles away, clearly visible in the morning light. It's slightly smaller than your fortress, housing perhaps 4,000 people instead of 5. But smaller doesn't mean weaker. Last year, they raided the southern pyramid and took its water terraces by force. 200 people died in that attack. The southern pyramid still stands, but it's wounded, limping through each season with barely enough stored water to survive. You study the rival pyramid through the clear morning air. Its limestone blocks gleam white in the sunlight, and you can see tiny figures moving along its walls. They're watching you just as you're watching them. 3 miles isn't far. Your fastest runners could cover that distance in less time than it takes to cook a pot of beans, which means their fastest runners could do the same. Count the watchfires, Yautl murmurs beside you. 7 last night. I see 8 smoke holes this morning. They're mobilizing. The morning drags with the peculiar slowness that comes before violence. You know this feeling now, after 7 raids. Time thickens like blood in cold air. Each heartbeat seems to echo against the stone. Your eyes burn from staring at the distant pyramid, searching for the telltale signs of movement that will precede an attack. Around mid-morning, a runner arrives from the commander's chamber. A young messenger boy no older than 12, still unmarked by tattoos, but already learning the warrior's silent efficiency. He whispers to Yautl, who nods grimly. The boy disappears back into the pyramid's interior, his bare feet slapping against stone. The scouts confirmed it, Yautl tells you quietly, his eyes never leaving the western horizon. Large party left the river pyramid before dawn, moving through the valley forest. 50 warriors, maybe more. Your mouth goes dry. 50 warriors represents a significant commitment. The river pyramid must be desperate for water, or confident. Neither option comforts you. When, you ask? They'll hit us around midday, when the sun is highest and we're tired from standing watch. Classic strategy. Yautl adjusts his grip on his macahuitl, the obsidian blades embedded in the wooden club catching the sunlight. Each blade is sharp enough to cut through bone with a single stroke. You've seen what these weapons do to human bodies. The memory never quite leaves. Below you, on the pyramid's lower tiers, life continues with forced normalcy. Farmers tend the terraced gardens where maize, beans, and squash grow in carefully irrigated rows. Weavers work their looms. Children play near the water cisterns, their laughter carrying upward on the morning breeze. They don't know yet. Or maybe they do, and they're just better at pretending than you are. Midday, you repeat, feeling the weight of hours ahead. The sun reaches its zenith, beating down with the merciless intensity that makes the dry season unbearable. Heat shimmers off the limestone battlements. Sweat runs down your back beneath the quilted armor, pooling at your waistband. Your throat feels lined with dust, despite the water ration you drank an hour ago. This is another weapon in warfare's arsenal. Exhaustion, thirst, the slow grinding down of bodies pushed past comfortable limits. Then you see them. Movement at the forest edge, perhaps a mile away. Dark shapes emerging from the green canopy like ants from a disturbed nest. You don't need to count to know there are more than 50, perhaps 70, perhaps 100. The river pyramid isn't testing. They're committed to this attack in a way that makes your stomach clench with cold understanding. Signal, Yautl snaps, and Nakali immediately raises the warning horn to his lips. The sound that emerges is long, low, and unmistakable. One long blast means enemy sighted. 3 short blasts would mean attack imminent. 5 rapid blasts would mean the fortress is falling. You've never heard 5 blasts, and you pray you never will. Throughout the pyramid, the sound triggers practiced responses. Below, farmers drop their tools and herd children toward the interior chambers. Elderly craftspeople gather their most precious materials and head for protected storage. The priests emerge from the temple at the pyramid's summit, their arms still bloodied from morning rituals, now ready to bless warriors with prayers and sacred smoke. Your hands tighten on your spear. The obsidian point seems to drink the sunlight, turning darker than the blackest night. You remember the first time you held this weapon, how light it seemed. Now it feels heavy with the weight of all the things you've done with it. All the red memories that cling to the stone like morning dew. The attacking force moves with disciplined speed across the valley floor, following the old trade road that connects the pyramids. In peaceful times, this road carries merchants and marriage parties, pottery and promises. Today, it carries warriors painted for battle, their bodies covered in red and black pigments that make them look like walking wounds. You can make out details now. They're wearing quilted armor identical to yours, carrying the same obsidian-edged weapons. One civilization, fractured into competing fortress cities, each one willing to kill its neighbors for water and maize. Your great-grandfather remembered when all the valley pyramids traded freely, when the road carried only merchants. Then the drought came. Then the raids began. Now, 60 years later, children like you are born knowing only warfare and fortress walls. The commander arrives on the western platform, a scarred woman named Talali, who earned her position by surviving more battles than anyone can count. She's 43, ancient by warrior standards, and she moves with the careful economy of someone who knows exactly how much energy each action requires. Her arms are covered in spirals that overlap and intertwine like serpents. You've heard she stopped counting after 50. 120, she says, studying the approaching force. They're bringing everyone who can hold a weapon. This isn't a raid for water. They're trying to take the pyramid. The words hang in the hot air like smoke. Taking a pyramid means climbing its walls while defenders rain obsidian-tipped death from above. It means fighting through defensive corridors designed to turn into slaughterhouses. It means casualties in numbers that make even veteran warriors flinch. Why now? Yautl asks, and you hear genuine confusion in his voice. They can't possibly think they have enough warriors to... They're not alone, Talali says, pointing east. Look. You turn to look east, and your heart drops into your stomach like a stone into a cistern. Another force emerges from the eastern forest, smaller than the western group, but still substantial. 40, maybe 50 warriors. They're moving toward the pyramid from a different angle, painted in the distinctive green and yellow patterns of the Lake Pyramid, the fortress that sits 5 miles to the east. Alliance, Talali says quietly. River Pyramid and Lake Pyramid have allied against us. This changes everything. 2 fortress cities working together represents something new, something that breaks the unspoken rules of valley warfare. Pyramids raid each other, yes. They compete for water and farmland and prestige. But they don't form alliances. Alliances create power imbalances. Alliances threaten the delicate equilibrium that has kept all 7 pyramids standing despite decades of drought and warfare. Sound the full alarm, Talali commands. 3 short blasts, everyone to defensive positions. Nakali blows the horn again. 3 sharp sounds that cut through the valley heat like obsidian through flesh. Throughout the pyramid, the rhythm of preparation accelerates. You hear the sound of hundreds of feet on stone stairs as warriors rush to their assigned positions. The priests begin chanting from the summit, calling on the gods for protection. Below, the last of the farmers and children disappear into the interior chambers, the heavy stone doors grinding shut behind them. You do the math automatically. Your pyramid has approximately 300 warriors capable of sustained combat. The attacking force numbers at least 170. Those are not impossible odds. You've heard stories of pyramids holding against worse, but those stories always end with massive casualties, with wounded warriors spending months in the healing chambers, with funerals that last for days. Today will cost you. The only question is, how much? Talali moves along the western platform with quick efficiency, positioning warriors at optimal defensive points. You and Yautel are assigned to the northern corner, where the western and northern walls meet, a critical junction that attackers will target if they reach the 3rd tier. It's a position of trust, which should make you proud. Instead, it makes you acutely aware that you have 7 spirals, and the enemy has 170 warriors who all want you dead. Atlatl's first, Talali, and warriors along the wall pull out the spear throwers, elegant wooden devices that effectively double the range and power of throwing spears. Wait for my signal, make every shot count. The attacking forces have closed to within half a mile now, near enough that you can see individual faces beneath the war paint. They're not running. They're advancing with the steady pace of people who know they have numbers on their side. The Western force has begun to fan out, preparing to hit the pyramid from multiple angles simultaneously. The Eastern force is doing the same. You slip 3 darts into your atlatl, feeling the familiar weight, checking the obsidian points for cracks. These weapons are your first line of defense. After the darts come arrows. After arrows come throwing stones. After stones come hand-to-hand combat with makuahuitls and obsidian knives. Each phase of battle has its rhythm, its distance, its specific horror. Beside you, Yautel breathes slowly and deliberately, a technique the older warriors taught him for controlling fear. You try to match his rhythm. In for 4 heartbeats, hold for 4, out for 4. It helps, marginally. Your hands still shake slightly, but the tremor is small enough that you can pretend it's just the heat shimmer rising from the stone. First battle? Asks Chimali from your other side. 7th, you reply. It doesn't get easier, he says, just more familiar. The enemy reaches 400 paces, then 300. You can hear their war cries now, rhythmic shouts meant to intimidate and coordinate. The sound washes over the pyramid like a wave, but your training holds. Fear is natural, panic is death. You learned this during your first raid, when you watched a young warrior freeze at his post, unable to move or fight. An enemy dart took him in the throat before the panic could even fully form. Steady, Talali calls, her voice cutting through the war cries. 200 paces, wait for it. At 200 paces, the enemy is well within atlatl range, but Talali holds the command. She's waiting for them to commit fully, to reach the point where retreat becomes difficult. This is the mathematics of warfare. Ranges, angles, the precise moment when attacking becomes more dangerous than defending. 150 paces, Talali counts. Atlatl's ready. You fit the dart into the atlatl's groove, feeling the weapon become an extension of your arm. The obsidian point catches the sunlight one last time before you angle it toward the approaching mass of painted warriors. Your target is a large warrior in the front rank, his body decorated with red spirals that mark him as experienced. He's carrying a shield made from hardened jaguar hide, which means your shot needs to be precise. 100 paces, loose! The word releases you. Your arm whips forward, the atlatl multiplying the force of your throw, and the dart arcs through the hot air in a trajectory that seems both impossibly fast and achingly slow. Around you, 30 other atlatls release simultaneously, filling the sky with obsidian-tipped death. The sound is like a flock of deadly birds taking flight, whistling through air made dense with heat and fear. The darts find their targets with sickening efficiency. You watch your dart punch through the large warrior's shield and into his shoulder, spinning him sideways. He doesn't fall, but he's wounded, his shield arm now useless. Other darts find gaps in armor, exposed throats, unprotected legs. The front rank of the attacking force staggers as perhaps a dozen warriors go down, dead or screaming. But 100 more keep coming. "Second volley!" Talali shouts. "Loose!" You've already loaded your second dart, muscle memory taking over where conscious thought becomes too slow. This time you aim for a warrior carrying a ladder, one of the lightweight constructions made from agave fiber that attackers use to scale pyramid walls. Your dart strikes him in the thigh. He drops the ladder and falls, clutching the wound. Good. Every ladder that doesn't reach the wall is 20 seconds of safety. The third volley releases before the enemy reaches 70 paces. Then they're too close for atlatls, and warriors switch to arrows. You don't carry a bow yourself. You never develop the strength needed to pull the massive warbows that can send arrows 200 paces. Instead, you ready your throwing stones, rounded river rocks that have been weighted and balanced for maximum impact. The arrows fill the air like deadly rain. The enemy raises shields, and you hear the distinctive sound of obsidian points hammering into hardened leather and wood. Some arrows penetrate, more don't. The enemy is within 50 paces now, and their own archers begin returning fire. An arrow whistles past your head, so close you feel the air move. Another strikes the battlement 3 feet to your left, the obsidian point shattering against limestone. "Stones!" Talali commands, and you let your first rock fly, aiming for a cluster of warriors carrying another ladder. The first ladder hits the wall 20 feet to your right, its upper end clanging against limestone with a sound that makes your teeth ache. Immediately, 2 defenders rush to push it back, but enemy warriors are already climbing, moving with the speed of people who know that hesitation means death. An enemy warrior reaches the top of the ladder just as the defenders manage to tip it backward. He leaps, trying to make the wall. He almost succeeds. His hands catch the battlement, but Nakali is there, bringing his macaweetle down on the exposed fingers. The scream that follows is lost in the greater roar of battle. More ladders strike the wall. They're coming from everywhere now, the enemy having closed to within 20 paces. This is the nightmare scenario your trainers always described. Hand-to-hand combat on the battlements, where a single broken defensive position can cascade into catastrophe. You drop your throwing stones and draw your macaweetle, the obsidian-edged club feeling both too light and too heavy in your sweating hands. An enemy warrior crests the wall directly in front of you. He's young, perhaps your age, his face painted with black spirals that mirror your blue tattoos. For a heartbeat, you see him as a person, someone's son or brother or friend. Then training overrides empathy. Your macaweetle swings in a horizontal arc, catching him across the chest. The obsidian blades cut deep, through cotton armor and flesh and into bone. He falls back off the wall without a sound, his body already limp. You don't have time to think about it. Another warrior is climbing, and another. Yautl fights beside you, his movements economical and precise. A swing, a block, a killing stroke. He makes it look almost easy, but you can see the strain in his face, the way his chest heaves with exertion. The battle compresses into a series of moments, each one sharp and distinct, yet somehow blurring together. Your arm rises and falls. The macahuitl finds flesh. Someone screams, enemy or ally, you can't tell. An obsidian blade cuts across your forearm, slicing through armor and skin. The pain is bright and immediate, but not deep enough to stop you. You reverse your grip and drive the macahuitl's butt into the attacker's face. Bone crunches. He falls. Time loses meaning. The sun might have moved. It might be hours later or only minutes. Your world narrows to the 5 feet of wall you're defending with Yautl. An enemy warrior makes it onto the battlement and rushes you with a spear. You sidestep, years of training making your body move before your mind fully registers the threat. Yautl's macahuitl takes the warrior from behind, cutting deep into his spine. The warrior drops like a severed rope. Then, somehow, there are fewer ladders. The press of attackers seems to thin. You risk a glance along the wall and see that the enemy is pulling back, retreating to 70 paces where your throwing weapons can't effectively reach them. They're not fleeing. Their formation is too organized for that. They're regrouping. You lean against the battlement, gasping for air. Your lungs burn. Your arms shake with exhaustion. The cut on your forearm throbs with each heartbeat, blood running down to drip from your fingertips. You look down the defensive line and count the cost. 3 warriors aren't moving, their bodies crumpled on the platform. 5 more are wounded badly enough to need immediate attention. The rest bear minor wounds like yours, cuts, bruises, the thousands small damages that accumulate during close combat. Water. Yautl croaks beside you, and someone passes a clay cup down the line. You drink, the liquid barely wetting your dust-choked throat. Commander Tlali moves down the line, assessing damage and repositioning warriors. When she reaches you, her eyes linger on your bleeding forearm for a moment before moving on. The cut is shallow enough to fight through. She knows it. You know it. In warfare, you learn quickly to distinguish between wounds that need immediate attention and wounds that can wait until the battle ends, if it ends. They're bringing up fresh warriors, Tlali announces, pointing at the regrouping force. You can see movement behind the front lines, new fighters emerging from the rear ranks to replace the wounded and dead. The enemy has reserves. The implication is clear. They planned for heavy casualties. They expected this to be brutal. Eastern Wall reports the same, Tlali continues. The Lake Pyramid force is pressing hard. They've made it to the second tier on that side. Your stomach clenches. The second tier is too close. If they break through there, they'll access the interior corridors, and then the pyramid becomes a maze of killing chambers where defenders lose the advantage of height. Your whole defensive strategy relies on keeping enemies away from the pyramid's interior. Once they're inside, it becomes a different kind of battle. Close, brutal, room by room. "We hold here," Tlali says, her voice carrying the weight of absolute command. "No retreat, no giving ground. They want our pyramid? They'll have to climb over our bodies to take it." It's not a rallying speech. There's no rhetoric, no appeals to glory or honor. It's just a statement of fact, delivered in the same tone she might use to describe the weather. You appreciate that. False inspiration would ring hollow, with bodies cooling on the stone around you. The enemy begins advancing again. Fresh warriors in the front rank, ladders ready. Your grip tightens on your macahuitl, despite the blood making the handle slick. The second assault crashes against the western wall like a wave against stone. This time, the enemy doesn't waste time with preliminary skirmishing. They rush forward with ladders already raised, covering the last 70 paces at a full run. Their archers provide cover fire, arrows arcing over the charging warriors to force defenders to keep their heads down. You crouch behind the battlement, feeling arrows whistle overhead, listening to the distinctive sound of obsidian points striking stone. The moment the arrow fall lessens, you rise and hurl your first throwing stone. It catches a ladder carrier in the chest, but another warrior simply picks up the fallen ladder and continues the advance. They've learned from the first assault. They're not slowing down. Ladders hit the wall like a drumbeat. 1, 2, 5, 10. More than you can count. The defenders spread thin, rushing from point to point, trying to push back ladders before climbers reach the top. But there are too many ladders and too few defenders. Your section of wall now has only 4 warriors. You, Yautl, Chimali, and a grizzled veteran named Tepin, who fights with 2 obsidian knives, one in each hand, moving with the elegant brutality of a jaguar. An enemy warrior crests the wall. Tepin is there instantly, his knives flashing in the sunlight. The enemy falls back, throat opened. Another climber appears 3 feet away. You're closer. Your Makuahuitl swings in a practiced arc. The obsidian blades bite deep into the warrior's shoulder. He screams and releases the ladder, falling backward and taking 2 other climbers with him. But for every enemy you stop, 2 more seem to appear. They're not just attacking your pyramid anymore. They're drowning it in bodies, accepting horrific casualties for the chance to overwhelm your defenses through sheer numbers. "They're committed!" Yautl shouts over the battle roar. "This is everything they have!" An enemy warrior makes it fully onto the battlement and charges you before you can reset your stance from the previous kill. He's huge, taller than any warrior you faced, his chest broad as a doorway. His Makuahuitl is longer than yours, giving him reach advantage. The obsidian blades whistle as he swings for your head. You drop flat, feeling the weapon pass above you close enough to ruffle your hair. From ground level, you kick out, catching his knee. Something cracks. He stumbles but doesn't fall. His weapon comes down again, aimed at your prone body. You roll left, the Makuahuitl striking limestone where your chest was a heartbeat before. Obsidian blades shatter against stone. The distraction costs him. Yautl's spear takes him in the side, punching through armor and ribs. The big warrior staggers, tries to swing at Yautl, then collapses as his punctured lung fills with blood. You scramble to your feet and immediately face 2 more climbing enemies. The battle has reached the point where conscious thought becomes impossible. You move on instinct and training, your body remembering what your mind can't process. Strike, block, sidestep, strike again. An enemy blade cuts across your ribs, shallow, painful but not fatal. You return the favor, your Makuahuitl opening a gash in the enemy's thigh. He falls back off the ladder. Somewhere to your right, you hear a victory cry followed by screaming. You risk a glance and see the enemies have broken through the defensive line 20 feet away. 3 enemy warriors are on the platform, fighting back to back, holding ground while more climb up behind them. This is the breach, the moment when defense collapses into catastrophe. "Form up!" Tlali's voice cuts through the chaos. "Corner defense, now!" You and Yautl immediately move toward the breach, joining other defenders. 7 defenders converge on the breach, including you, Yautl, and Commander Tlali herself. The 3 enemy warriors who made the platform are good, veteran fighters who know how to hold ground. They've positioned themselves with their backs to the battlement, making it impossible to surround them. More enemies are climbing up behind them, and if they succeed in establishing a foothold, the western wall will fall. "Shield wall," Tlali, and immediately you understand. 3 defenders in front raise their shields, hardened leather stretched over wooden frames. You and 3 others crouch behind them, weapons ready. Tlali stands at the center, her obsidian-edged sword held low and deadly. The formation advances as one unit, pushing toward the enemy breach. The shield wall absorbs the initial strikes from the enemy warrior's weapons. Then Tlali gives the command you've been waiting for. Strike! The shields drop for a heartbeat, and you thrust your macahuitl through the gap, aiming for exposed legs. Your blade connects with flesh. Beside you, other warriors do the same, turning the shield wall into a porcupine of stabbing weapons. One enemy warrior falls, his leg cut nearly through. The other two close ranks, but now they're only 2 against 7. The shield wall presses forward. Your wounded ribs scream with every movement, but you ignore the pain. Another coordinated strike. Another enemy falls. The last warrior, seeing himself alone and surrounded, tries to leap back over the battlement to the ladders below. He almost makes it. Tlali's sword catches him mid-jump, opening his back from shoulder to hip. He falls without a sound. You and the other defenders immediately turn to the ladders, where more enemies are climbing. But seeing their breakthrough force eliminated seems to break something in the attackers. The climbing slows, then stops. The enemy begins a fighting retreat, pulling back to 100 paces while maintaining formation. This time, it's not a regroup for another assault. You can see it in the way they move, the way they're dragging their wounded with them. They're done, at least for today. A ragged cheer goes up from the defenders along the western wall, but Tlali silences it with a sharp gesture. The eastern wall, she snaps. They're still engaged. You turn and look across the pyramid to the eastern side, and your exhausted relief curdles into fresh fear. The eastern wall is in chaos. The Lake Pyramid's warriors have made it onto the second tier and are fighting their way toward the interior passages. Smoke rises from somewhere inside the pyramid. Fire. Someone has started a fire in the storage chambers. Western wall, with me, Tlali commands, and without waiting for acknowledgement, she's already running toward the interior stairs. You follow, your wounded body screaming protest with every step. Behind you, the remaining western wall defenders abandon their posts and follow. The river pyramid's forces might return, but if the eastern wall falls and enemies get into the interior, the whole fortress becomes indefensible. The interior corridors are thick with smoke now, stinging your eyes and choking your lungs. You navigate by touch and memory, one hand on the wall, the other gripping your macahuitl. Somewhere ahead, you hear the sounds of fighting, shouts, screams, the distinctive crack of obsidian on stone and bone. You emerge onto the second-tier eastern platform and immediately understand why the Lake Pyramid nearly succeeded. They sacrificed everything for this assault, throwing their entire force at a single point. Bodies cover the platform, enemy and defender alike, and the fighting continues with desperate intensity among the smoke and flames. The battle on the eastern platform is uglier than what you faced on the western wall. The enclosed space removes all tactical advantage, turning the fight into a brutal scrum where combatants press shoulder to shoulder, unable to swing weapons properly, reduced to stabbing and grappling and gouging. The smoke makes it worse, turning friends into shadows and enemies into ghosts that appear without warning. You wade into the chaos beside Yautl, your arrival tipping the numbers slightly in the defender's favor. An enemy warrior lunges from the smoke, his obsidian knife aimed at your throat. You block with your macahuitl, the wooden shaft catching the blade. The impact jars your wounded arm, sending fresh pain through old cuts. You twist, using the macahuitl to trap the knife, then drive your knee into the warrior's stomach. He doubles over and your elbow crashes into the back of his skull. He goes down. The smoke is getting thicker. Somewhere, the fire is spreading. You can feel heat now, not just see smoke. The storage chambers must be fully involved. Your people keep their grain stores in sealed clay vessels, which should prevent the fire from reaching the food, but the wooden shelving and woven baskets will burn fast and hot. Fall back to the third tier! A defender shouts, not Talali, but a senior warrior whose face you can't see through the smoke. Abandon the second tier! The order spreads through the defenders like wildfire itself. Abandoning a tier means giving ground, but it also means consolidating defenses and escaping the smoke and flames. Warriors begin moving toward the interior stairs, fighting their way through the press of enemy combatants who sense opportunity and press harder. You and Yautl cover each other's retreat, moving backward step by step, weapons swinging to keep enemies at bay. The retreat up the interior stairs becomes a nightmare of smoke and stone. The enemy pursues, trying to prevent the defenders from establishing a new defensive line. In the narrow stairway, warriors fight while climbing, each step contested. You find yourself facing an enemy warrior on a landing halfway between tiers. The space is barely wide enough for two people, and neither of you has room to properly swing weapons. He thrusts with his spear. You deflect it against the wall, then close the distance, getting inside his reach, where the spear becomes useless. Your Macaweetl is equally ineffective at this range, so you drop it and pull your obsidian knife. The fighting becomes primal, grappling, stabbing, both of you trying to gain leverage in the confined space. His hand finds your throat. Your vision starts to darken at the edges. Your knife finds his side, once, twice, 3 times. He doesn't let go. You stab again, angling up under his ribs, finding something vital. His grip loosens. You shove him, and he tumbles backward down the stairs, taking 2 other enemy warriors with him. You retrieve your Macaweetl and continue climbing, your throat bruised, breathing painful. Around you, other defenders fight similar, desperate actions, turning the interior stairs into a killing ground that favors the defenders. Attackers have to climb while fighting, exhausting themselves. Defenders can fight from higher ground, using gravity and superior position. By the time you reach the 3rd tier, the pursuit has faltered. The enemy warriors who made it into the pyramid are either dead or trapped between tiers, cut off from reinforcement. The fire on the 2nd tier still burns, but it's contained to the eastern section. Talali has already organized a bucket line, warriors and civilians passing clay vessels of water from the cisterns to douse the flames before they spread. As the sun begins its descent toward the western horizon, the sounds of battle finally, truly cease. The enemy forces have withdrawn. The river pyramid warriors back across the valley, the lake pyramid forces retreating east. They leave behind their dead, dozens of bodies scattered across the valley floor, a grim testament to the price they paid for their failed assault. You sit on the 3rd tier platform, your back against the wall, too exhausted to move. Around you, other warriors do the same, creating a tableau of bloodied, smoke-stained survivors. The adrenaline that carried you through hours of combat is draining away, leaving behind pain that makes every breath an effort. A healer moves among the wounded, not your mother, but an older woman named Sochil, whose hands move with practiced efficiency. She reaches you and examines your wounds without speaking. The forearm cut from the first assault, the shallow rib slash from the second, the bruised throat from the stairway fight, plus a dozen smaller cuts and bruises you don't even remember receiving. "You'll live," she pronounces, which is apparently the best diagnosis available. She presses a poultice of herbs against your ribs and binds it in place with cotton strips. The herbs sting worse than the original wound, but you know they'll prevent infection. Infection kills more warriors than enemy blades. "How many?" you ask Yautl, who's being treated by another healer nearby. "Dead?" He pauses while the healer binds a deep cut on his shoulder. Western Wall lost 18. Eastern Wall lost 32. Plus another 15 wounded too badly to fight again soon. 65 casualties out of 300 warriors. More than 1 in 5. Your pyramid has survived, but it's been wounded in ways that won't heal quickly. Every dead warrior represents knowledge lost, training wasted, families devastated. As darkness falls, the priests conduct a mass funeral ceremony on the 7th tier, near the pyramid's summit. The dead are wrapped in cotton burial shrouds and placed on wooden platforms. Their weapons are placed beside them, maquawitls, spears, atlatls, because your people believe warriors continue fighting in the afterlife. You watch as familiar faces disappear beneath white cotton. Tepin, the dual knife fighter who moved like a jaguar. Nakali, who never quite recovered from losing his brother. 15 others from the Western Wall whose names you know, whose families will now have one fewer mouth to feed, but one fewer provider to support them. The priests chant prayers while cutting their own flesh with obsidian thorns, their blood mixing with copal smoke in the evening air. You're too tired to find much meaning in the ritual. The dead are dead, the living hurt. The pyramid still stands. These are the only truths that matter right now. After the ceremony, you make your way down to your mother's quarters on the 6th tier. She takes one look at you and pulls you into an embrace that makes your ribs scream in protest. You don't complain. Her arms around you are the first gentle thing you've experienced in 12 hours. I heard the numbers, she says quietly. I kept listening for your name. Every time a messenger came with the casualty reports, I held my breath. I'm here, you tell her, though here feels like an approximation. Part of you is still on the Western Wall. Part of you is on that stairway, stabbing the enemy warrior who wouldn't release your throat. Part of you is watching Tepin fall, his dual knives still flashing even as he died. Sit, your mother commands, and you obey. She begins cleaning your wounds properly, removing the battlefield bandages. Your mother works in silence, her fingers gentle but thorough. She's a weaver, not a healer, but decades of treating her son's training injuries have taught her enough. She washes each wound with water infused with healing herbs, removes the battle poultices, and replaces them with fresh ones. Binds everything with clean cotton that she wove herself on the loom that stands in the corner of her small chamber. Your grandmother wants to see you, she says while wrapping the bandage around your ribs. She's been sitting outside her chamber since the alarm sounded, watching the stairs, waiting for you to come down. Guilt adds itself to your exhaustion. Your grandmother is 73, one of the oldest people in the pyramid. Her hands can barely grip a shuttle anymore, but she still weaves because weaving earns her full rations instead of the quarter portions given to elderly who can't contribute labor. She's been waiting all day, not knowing if you survived. I'll go see her, you promise. Your mother ties the final knot and sits back, studying you with eyes that see more than wounds. You have 8 spirals now, she observes. They'll mark you tomorrow. You hadn't thought about that. Another spiral to add to your arms. Another marker of raids survived. When you started, you thought spirals meant glory. Now you know they just mean you're good at not dying. Do you want to keep fighting? Your mother asks. It's a dangerous question. Warriors who express doubt can lose their status, their rations, their position in the pyramid's carefully maintained hierarchy. But she's your mother, and this is her chamber, and she's asking because she needs to know if her son is breaking under the weight of accumulated horror. I don't know, you admit, but I will. We don't have a choice. You find your grandmother exactly where your mother said she would be, sitting on a stone bench outside her chamber on the 6th tier. Despite her age, her back remains straight, and her eyes are clear when they focus on you emerging from the stairway. Relief floods her weathered face, followed immediately by the practiced composure of someone who's watched too many people die to allow herself excessive emotion. Sitlali, she says simply, and you sit beside her. She reaches out and touches the fresh bandages, the clean cotton that your mother wove and wrapped. Her fingers trace the outline of your 7 spirals, tomorrow to be 8, with the delicate touch of someone whose hands remember strength, even as age steals it away. I survived 4 raids, she tells you. This isn't new information, she's told you before, but tonight it feels different. This pyramid was different then. We still traded with the river fortress. The lake pyramid sent us brides. The southern pyramid shared their obsidian supplies. Then the drought came, and everything changed. You've heard the history, but history feels different after living through battle. Your grandmother wasn't just reciting facts. She was remembering friends who became enemies, trade roads that became invasion routes, the slow collapse of cooperation into competition. Does it ever stop, you ask? The raiding? She's quiet for a long moment, watching the stars emerge above the pyramid. When I was young, I thought it would. I thought we'd solve the water problem, or the drought would end, or someone would broker peace. I was wrong. The raids don't stop, they just pause. It's not the answer you wanted, but it's the honest one. The raids don't stop, they pause. And in those pauses, you gather strength and mourn the dead and wait for the next warning horn. You wake the next morning to find your body has stiffened overnight into a single, unified ache. Every muscle protests movement. Your wounds throb with each heartbeat. Rolling off your sleeping mat requires genuine effort, and standing is an exercise in willpower. Around you, other warriors are experiencing the same painful awakening. Yautel, as he sits up, his bandaged shoulder making him move like an old man despite his 22 years. I hurt in places I didn't know could hurt, he mutters, and you manage a weak laugh that makes your ribs scream in protest. The day after battle always follows the same pattern. Bodies that ran on fear and adrenaline yesterday now demand payment for those borrowed hours. But the pyramid doesn't stop functioning just because its warriors are wounded. There's damage to repair, bodies to bury, defenses to restore. The work continues. You make your way to the communal eating area and accept your morning ration. The portions are smaller than usual. The fire on the second tier destroyed some stored grain, which means rationing will tighten for everyone until the next harvest. This too is part of warfare's price. Not just the dead and wounded, but the slow, grinding reduction of resources that makes each successive raid harder to survive. Commander Talali appears on the terrace, and the quiet breakfast conversations cease. She looks as exhausted as the rest of you, her usually precise movements slightly slower, but her voice remains strong when she speaks. The tattoo master will mark new spirals this afternoon in the 4th tier chamber. Warriors who earned advancement report there after midday. The enemy took heavy casualties. Our scouts count 47 dead from the river pyramid, 23 from the lake pyramid. They won't raid again for at least 2 months, maybe longer. 2 months. It feels like both forever and no time at all. The afternoon brings the tattooing ceremony in a 4th tier chamber, lit by oil lamps and copal smoke. The tattoo master, an elderly man named Tlazot Lali, whose own arms are so covered in spirals they appear solid blue, sits cross-legged before his tools. These are simple: obsidian needles, pigments made from crushed minerals, and the steady hand that comes from 50 years of practice. You're not alone. 6 other warriors also earned advancement yesterday. You sit in a row against the wall, waiting your turn. The process is slow, deliberate. Each spiral takes nearly an hour to complete, the obsidian needle piercing skin thousands of times, pushing blue pigment deep enough that it will remain visible until death. When your turn comes, you present your right arm, the inside of your forearm, where the 8th spiral will join the 7 others. Tlazot Lali studies the existing pattern, finding the precise angle and spacing that will make the new spiral flow naturally from the old ones. He doesn't speak. The only sounds are the prayers from the priest who oversees the ceremony and the small clicking of needle against skin. The pain is sharp but manageable. After yesterday's battle, needle pricks feel almost trivial. You watch the spiral take shape, this permanent record of survival. Each warrior's spirals tell a story. How many raids, which years, sometimes which injuries. Old warriors can look at another fighter's arms and read their entire combat history. Yautl sits across from you, having received his 13th spiral an hour ago. The fresh ink makes his forearm look almost black in the lamplight. He catches your eye and nods. No words needed. You both survived another raid. You both carry new marks. Tomorrow, the cycle continues. You'll want to keep this clean, Klazotlali finally speaks as he finishes the spiral's final curve. Infection in tattoos is rare, but the 2 months of respite pass with the deceptive speed that comes from endless work. There's always something demanding attention. The western wall needs repairs where ladder impacts cracked the limestone. The second tier requires complete reconstruction in the sections damaged by fire. The storage chambers must be reorganized, their contents catalogued and rationed. Warriors train despite wounds, because wounds heal, but skills atrophy without practice. You spend your mornings on repair duty, hauling limestone blocks alongside other warriors. The work is backbreaking, but it serves dual purposes, rebuilding defenses and rebuilding the camaraderie that battle always strains. You learn the names of warriors you only knew by sight before. You hear their stories. The pyramid contains 5,000 people, but after working beside someone for weeks, hauling stone and mixing mortar, they stop being numbers and become individuals. Your afternoons belong to training. Despite Talali's estimate of 2 months, everyone knows the enemy pyramids are watching, waiting for signs of weakness. The western wall never stands with fewer than 20 warriors during daylight now. The eastern approach maintains constant double watch. Your society has evolved into permanent defensive readiness, and you've become so accustomed to it that you can barely remember what peace might feel like. Yautl has taken on informal teaching duties, working with younger warriors who've never faced battle. You sometimes join these sessions, demonstrating techniques that kept you alive. It feels strange being the one teaching when you still feel so uncertain yourself. But 8 spirals grant authority whether you feel worthy of it or not. Keep your weight balanced, you tell a 14-year-old named Tezka, who holds his macahuitl like it might bite him. The weapon is heavy, but if you fight the weight, it fights back. The boy adjusts his stance, and you see yourself 3 years ago, equally uncertain, equally determined. 7 weeks after the battle, scouts bring news that changes everything. The river pyramid and lake pyramid haven't been quiet because they're recovering. They've been negotiating. A third pyramid has joined their alliance, the southern pyramid, the one that lost its water terraces last year and has been limping through each season since. Now 3 pyramids stand against your fortress, 3 against 1. The news spreads through the pyramid like smoke from a signal fire. 3 allied pyramids represent perhaps 12,000 people total compared to your 5,000. More importantly, they represent perhaps 500 warriors capable of sustained combat. Your pyramid, even after 2 months of recovery, can field barely 250. You lost 65 in the last battle, and many of those wounded still can't fight effectively. Commander Talali calls a council on the 7th tier, and for the first time, you're invited to attend. 8 spirals apparently grants you the status to hear strategy instead of simply executing it. The council chamber is a broad platform overlooking the valley, designed so commanders can see the terrain they're discussing. All around you sit the pyramid's senior warriors, each bearing 15 or more spirals, their arms looking like blue serpents have wrapped them from wrist to shoulder. They're planning a siege, Tilali gestures to the valley below. Look at the movement patterns. They're not raiding anymore. They're positioning supply camps. They're preparing for a long campaign. A siege. The word hangs heavy. Raids last hours, maybe days. Sieges last months. Sieges starve pyramids slowly instead of crushing them quickly. And with 3 allied fortresses, the enemy has resources to maintain pressure that no single pyramid could sustain. Our water systems can support us for 6 months, the Watermaster, an old warrior named Shu-Coatl. Food stores for 4, if we ration properly. 4 months isn't enough, another senior warrior states. His name is Ehekatl, and his 23 spirals mark him as the pyramid's most experienced living fighter. They don't need to climb our walls if they can wait until we're too weak from hunger to defend them. We need a different strategy. The council debates through the afternoon. Some argue for a preemptive strike against one of the allied pyramids, trying to break the alliance by showing its vulnerabilities. Others advocate for sending diplomats to attempt negotiations, though no one seems hopeful about that option. A few suggest sending parties to raid enemy supply camps, disrupting their siege preparations. You listen more than you speak, absorbing the complexity of strategy that exists beyond the simple violence of wall defense. Warfare at this level isn't just about who can swing weapons better. It's logistics and timing, psychology and resources. It's understanding that starving enemies can be as effective as killing them, that fear can accomplish what force cannot. The young warrior, Ehekatl says suddenly, and you realize with a start that he's looking at you. Sitlali, you fought at the wall junction during the breach. What did you see? It's a test, you understand. The senior warriors want to know if you can think beyond your immediate combat experience. You take a breath and consider your answer carefully. The enemy alliance works because they coordinate, you say slowly. But coordination requires communication. If we could disrupt their ability to coordinate, destroy their signal fires, intercept their messengers, create confusion about timing, they might attack separately instead of together. Ehekatl nods slowly. Divide the alliance by making coordination impossible. Ambitious, dangerous, but possibly effective. He looks at Tilali. It would require small raiding parties working deep in enemy territory. High risk. High risk, Tilali agrees, but better than starving. The raids begin 3 nights later. Small groups, never more than 10 warriors, slipping down the pyramid under cover of darkness, moving through the valley like shadows. You're part of the first team, chosen by Tilali herself because, as she puts it, you think before you act, and raiders who don't think don't come back. Your team consists of 5 warriors, including Yautl and you. The others are veterans with 12 or more spirals, fighters who've learned the difference between courage and suicide. Your target is a signal station on the ridgeline between your pyramid and the river fortress. Destroy the station, kill the watchers if necessary, return before dawn. You move in single file through the darkness, using the moon shadows and terrain features for cover. No one speaks. Hand signals only. The night is alive with sounds. Insects, small animals, the wind through the valley grass, and you learn to distinguish natural sounds from human movement. Every warrior ahead of you has done this before. You watch how they move, where they step, when they pause. The signal station is exactly where the scouts reported, a small platform built on the highest ridge point, with 2 watchers maintaining a fire that can be seen by both the river pyramid and the lake pyramid. Take out this station, and the 2 allied fortresses lose their fastest communication method. They'll have to use runners, which are slower and easier to intercept. Yautl signals a halt 50 paces from the target. The team leader, a scarred veteran named Teokoyani, gestures the plan with quick hand movements. 2 warriors will circle left, 2 right. You'll attack from downhill, making the watchers look down while the flanking teams approach from above. Simple, classic, extremely dangerous if anything goes wrong. You check your weapons one final time. Obsidian knife, macuahuitl, 3 throwing stones. Then you begin your approach. The attack unfolds with brutal efficiency. You emerge from the downhill shadows, deliberately making noise, drawing the watchers' attention. They turn toward you, shouting alarm, reaching for weapons. That's when the flanking teams strike from above and behind. It's over in heartbeats. The watchers die before they can fully comprehend they're under attack. Teokoyani doesn't celebrate. "Dismantle the platform," he orders, fast and quiet. You and Yautl work together, using obsidian axes to chop through the wooden structure's support posts. The platform collapses with a muffled crash. The signal fire scatters across the ground. Without the elevated platform, this ridge point becomes useless for long-distance signaling. The enemy can rebuild, but it will take days, maybe weeks. For that time, their coordination suffers. "Bodies," Teokoyani commands, and the team drags the dead watchers into the collapsed structure. Not out of respect, but because visible bodies might trigger immediate retaliation. Hidden bodies buy more time before the enemy realizes their communication system has been compromised. The return journey is faster but more dangerous. The enemy might have heard the platform collapse. They might be sending investigation parties. Speed becomes essential, and the team moves at a ground-eating trot that would be reckless under other circumstances. But staying ahead of discovery matters more than perfect stealth now. You reach your pyramid's base as the eastern sky begins to lighten from black to grey. The gates open just wide enough to admit the team, then close immediately. Inside, Tlali waits in the entrance chamber. "Report," she demands. "Station destroyed," Teokoyani says. 2 watchers eliminated. No pursuit, no injuries. Tlali nods once. "Good. Rest for 6 hours, then we plan the next target." She looks at you specifically. "Your idea is working. Keep thinking." Over the following weeks, the raiding continues. Your pyramid launches strike after strike against enemy infrastructure. Signal stations fall, supply caches burn, messenger runners disappear on dark roads. The 3-pyramid alliance begins showing strain as coordination breaks down. The river fortress attacks on a day when the lake fortress isn't ready. The southern pyramid sends warriors who arrive after the battle has already been decided. Each failure breeds distrust among the allies. You participate in 4 more raids, each one different, each one teaching you something new about warfare beyond the wall. You learn that patience can be as deadly as speed, that sometimes the best attack is the one you don't make because the enemy expects it. That information about enemy movements is worth more than 100 dead warriors because information prevents battles while bodies just create them. Your 9th spiral is tattooed after a particularly successful raid where your team intercepted a messenger carrying strategic plans between pyramids. The captured documents revealed that the alliance was fracturing, that the southern pyramid wanted to negotiate separate peace while the river and lake fortresses wanted to continue the siege. Tlali used that information to send her own messenger, a diplomatic party offering the southern pyramid favorable trade terms if they withdrew from the alliance. The southern pyramid accepted. Just like that, the 3-against-1 siege became 2-against-1, and 2 pyramids don't have enough warriors to maintain effective siege pressure. The river and lake fortresses withdraw to their own territories, their alliance broken by your pyramid's refusal to simply defend and die. You stand on the western wall on the evening the enemy camps disappear from the valley. The sunset paints the sky orange and purple. Beside you, Yautl shakes his head in something like wonder. "We won," he says. "Without a major battle, we actually won." But victory tastes different than you expected. It's not the triumphant feeling the stories describe. It's more like exhaustion mixed with relief, mixed with the knowledge that this is temporary. The raids don't stop, they just pause. Your grandmother's words echo in your mind. Life in the pyramids settles into what passes for normal. You continue training, you stand watch duty. You participate in strategy councils now, your input valued because you've proven you can think as well as fight. The 9th spiral on your arm marks you as a warrior who's survived enough to understand that survival is the point, not glory. Your mother weaves, your grandmother watches the stars. The farmers tend their terraced crops. Children play near the cisterns, their laughter carrying up through the tears like it always has. The pyramid endures. One evening, 3 months after the enemy withdrawal, you find yourself back on the western wall at sunset. It's become a habit, this watching of the horizon. You're not assigned to watch duty tonight. You just come here because this is where you understand the world. Untold finds you, as he often does. He doesn't ask why you're here. He simply stands beside you, looking out at the valley where you've both fought and bled and survived. The river pyramid sits in the distance, its limestone blocks catching the fading light. Someday, maybe tomorrow or next month or next year, they'll come again. And you'll be here, standing watch, defending stone and water, and the 5,000 people who depend on warriors like you to give them time to weave and plant and live. You ever think about what we're fighting for? You ask. Untold considers the question. We're fighting so that today doesn't become yesterday, so tomorrow still has a chance to exist. It's a simple answer, but it settles something in your chest. You're not fighting for glory or honor, or any of the grand concepts the priests invoke during ceremonies. You're fighting for time. Time for your mother to weave. Time for your grandmother to watch stars. Time for children to become warriors who'll stand on these walls when you're too old or dead to do it yourself. The sun drops below the western mountains, and the valley fills with the soft darkness that comes before full night. Below, you hear the evening prayers beginning, the priests' voices carrying down from the summit. Around the pyramid, oil lamps are being lit, creating a constellation of small flames that mark windows and terraces and the places where people live their lives. Do you think it will ever really end? You ask, not really expecting an answer. The raids, the alliances, the fighting. Untold is quiet for a long moment. My grandfather used to say that warfare is just what happens when drought meets too many people and not enough water. Maybe if the rains return, maybe if we find new water sources, maybe if someone invents something that changes everything. He shrugs. Or maybe this is just how people are. We build pyramids, we defend them, we attack others. Maybe that's the pattern we're stuck in. You think about that, about patterns, about cycles, about the fact that you're 19 years old with 9 spirals already marking your arms, and you've killed more people than you can accurately count. And you'll probably do it again when the next raid comes. But tonight, the valley is quiet. The pyramid stands, the lamps are lit. 5,000 people are safe for one more day. And maybe, you think, maybe that's enough. Maybe fighting for today, while hoping for a better tomorrow, is all anyone can really do. So, that was life defending a pyramid fortress in prehistoric America. Brutal, calculated, and fought with obsidian and stone. These weren't the ceremonial monuments you learned about. They were military installations built from desperation and maintained through blood. Every civilization that built these structures faced the same reality. Limited resources, too many rivals, and the knowledge that elevation meant survival. If you found this fascinating, let me know in the comments what historical survival scenario you'd like to explore next. Ancient warfare? Medieval sieges? Frontier survival? Now, let that information settle. Close your eyes and sleep well knowing your battles are only metaphorical. Good night.